Discover how a waitress stood up against harassment, then her life changed in an incredible way. Claire's laughter could cut through the thickest cloud of gloom. As a 24-year-old waitress at the Little Blue Diner in Maplewood, she had a knack for turning any meal into a celebration. Her smile infectious and her energy radiant. But behind those bright eyes lay an unrelenting burden. Every evening, as she tied her apron strings, she tucked dreams into the pocket of her apron. Hopes of a better life for her younger brother, Alex, who looked up to her like she was a superhero. Claire worked long shifts, her heart full of love for her mother, who had single-handedly raised them, and her brother, who deserved to chase his passions without fear. Then, everything changed. Jack, a swanky businessman with a charm that drew people in like a moth to a flame, started coming in every evening. At first, Claire found his compliments flattering. She blushed every time he dropped an extravagant tip with a wink that made her heart flutter. But soon enough, the winks turned into invasive comments, sweet nothings twisted into unsettling, inappropriate remarks. Claire felt herself drowning, her sanctuary becoming a battleground, with Jack as the intimidating adversary. The laughter in the air turned heavy and suffocating. "Claire, you okay?" Mia, her best friend, asked one evening as they wiped down tables together. Claire's heart ached as she nodded, but the words lodged in her throat, fighting to escape. She needed to voice her struggles, to shed the vulnerability weighing her down. That night, she gathered the courage to confront her fears. The thought of the community meeting at the local church made butterflies swarm in her stomach. Yet she knew she had to try. As she stood before familiar faces, a patchwork of neighbors, teachers, and friends, the heaviness in her chest felt lighter from the solidarity they exuded. But the vulnerability was palpable. Claire's voice trembled as she shared her truth, recounting the discomfort she felt. "We need to protect each other," she said, glancing around the pews filled with comforting nones. Yet, Mr. Thompson brushed her concerns away, prioritizing profit over the people who made the diner what it was. The ensuing townsfolk meeting shivered with anticipation. Claire's heart raced as she confronted Jack head-on. "You can't let this continue," she cried, tears glimmering in her eyes. "We deserve dignity. We're more than just customers or waitresses." Words poured out of her like a rushing river, each one a plea for justice, each one a spark igniting the room. Would her raw emotion lead to the community rising, or would fear keep them mute? Before she could catch her breath, she looked at her mother's tear-filled eyes, and Alex's hopeful smile fueled her. Encouraging murmurs rippled through the gathering. Would they stand beside her, or flee back into their comfort zones? Just as the room buzzed with determination, Mr. Thompson stood, an unreadable expression on his face, as if he saw opportunity in the chaos. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The tension hung thick in the air, hearts pounding like drums. Claire's bravely spoken truth had lit a fire, but would it be enough? Would they unite against harassment or crumble? Everything rested on the edge of this moment. Claire was determined but terrified, knowing the outcome could forever change their tight-knit town. The silence deepened as Mr. Thompson's lips parted, ready to speak. Claire held her breath, bracing herself for the impending storm. Mr. Thompson's voice broke through the silence, a measured tone that sent shivers down Claire's spine. "I appreciate your passion, Claire, but the diner is a business and we have to consider our bottom line." His words were a slap, cold and dismissive. The weight of his indifference felt like a lead curtain, pulling the air from the room. Claire's heart raced, desperation clawing at her throat. She looked around at the faces now filled with uncertainty. Some were frowning, others whispering among themselves. Mia squeezed Claire's hand from beside her, a silent promise of support. But was it enough? Gathering her thoughts, Claire pushed back against the wave of hopelessness. Don't you see? This isn't just about the diner, she implored. It's about our community, our willingness to stand up for one another. If we stay silent and allow this to happen, what will that say about us? We can't keep turning a blind eye. Her voice cracked with emotion. It felt like she was laying bare her soul, risking everything not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever felt powerless. A murmur began to build, a soft ripple of acknowledgement that seemed to gather strength. It twined around the room, slowly knitting them together like a community should. Then, a voice broke through the sound. Yes, right. It was Mrs. Jenkins, an elderly woman who came in regularly for her morning coffee and donuts. Harassment doesn't belong in Maplewood. We're better than this. With that, more voices joined in a collective hum of agreement swelling through the pews. Clara's heart soared, a flicker of flame igniting deep within her. The tide was turning, and she could feel it. Across the aisle, a young father stood up, cradling his baby in his arms. I want my daughter to grow up in a world where she feels safe, where she can work without fear. Cheers erupted, a chorus of support that filled the church walls. Mr. Thompson's previously confident demeanor faltered, a flicker of concern crossing his face. The tide of emotion in the room was palpable. But just as hope filled her heart, a shadow crept in. Feeling emboldened, Jack stood up, his smile thin and sardonic. So what? Just because you feel uncomfortable, you think we should change everything? His tone dripped with mockery. Get over yourselves. This is just the way things are. Gasps spread through the crowd, but Clara's feet were weighted with determination. No, not anymore, she shouted, surprising herself with the conviction that surged within her. Change begins with us. If we don't stand up now, who will? We can't let fear dictate our lives. The energy in the room vibrated with potential. Claire felt as if she were standing at the edge of a cliff, peering into the unknown below, a gust of courage pushing her forward. The muted whispers transformed into a united cheer, a wave of solidarity that swelled, swallowing Jack's disdain whole. Mr. Thompson finally yielded, glancing around at the sea of impassioned faces. All right, he said, a heavy resignation in his voice. Let us work to find a solution. We'll address this issue. Cheers erupted again, and relief washed over Claire like a soft rain after a long drought. She felt her shoulders lift, the burden lessening as community took root in solidarity. But she knew this was just the beginning. As the meeting concluded, Claire's heart raced with possibilities. Would their voices keep rising? Could they truly change things for the better? With determination shimmering in her spirit, she took a deep breath. Tomorrow would present new challenges, but for now they made a stand. Just as they began to disperse, her mother's voice broke through the buzz. Claire. Annette's eyes shone with pride and something deeper worry. I need to talk to you about something important. Claire's heart skipped. What could be so urgent? As she followed her mother outside, the cool evening breeze brushed against her cheeks, carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken fears. What would her mother reveal? The dawning light of change lit their path, but shadows lingered just out of reach, waiting to be confronted. The moment Claire stepped outside, the brisk air was refreshing, yet it held a tension she could feel in her bones. The church's warmth faded as her mother turned to her, apprehension clouding her usually serene demeanor. Annette nibbled on her lower lip, searching for the right words, and Claire's stomach twisted in knots. What is it, Mom? Claire asked, her voice quivering slightly. She noticed the fading light of day, the sun a mere sliver dipping below the horizon, ushering in a twilight that felt unsettling. Annette glanced around, ensuring they had a moment free from prying ears. It's about the diner, she began, hesitating. And what you spoke about inside. Claire's heart skipped. What do you mean? Did something happen? Her mother took a deep breath, her shoulders slumping a little as if carrying an unseen weight. I think you should know that this isn't just a matter of changing attitudes. It's also about people in positions of power, people like Mr. Thompson. He's connected in ways we don't always see. Claire felt a chill run down her spine. Connected? How? Years ago, before you were born, he was involved in some pretty shady dealings, Annette confessed softly, her eyes darting back to ensure no one lingered nearby. And he's not alone. This isn't just about the diner. Touches our whole community. Claire's mind raced. The conversations at the diner, the unspoken tensions, were starting to paint a picture that filled her with dread. But we can't let fear hold us back. Can we? That's what I said. Claire protested, heated yet frightened. I know, sweetie. I know. Annette reached for Claire's hand, squeezing it gently. But we have to be cautious. This man, his influence runs deep. Messing with him could bring consequences. A mixture of anger and disbelief surged within Claire. So we just roll over? Let him intimidate us? No, this is our chance. We are stronger together. Annette's expression softened, the pride in her daughter battling the worry in her heart. I admire your passion, Claire. You have the spirit of your grandmother in you. Just promise me you'll be careful. Claire glanced back at the church, the voices still echoing in her mind. They had rallied as a community tonight, yet the fear clung to her. Promise, but I won't back down. We can change this. As they made their way home, Claire's thoughts swirled with possibilities. They shown strength today. Could it lead to the changes they also desperately needed? But the urgency of her mother's words wrapped around her like a vice. The next day, Claire returned to the diner with a newfound sense of purpose. The familiar scent of coffee and pancakes filled her with comfort and resolve. She began to speak with her coworkers, igniting conversations about standing up, sharing their experiences. They exchanged glances filled with understanding. However, as the day wore on, something felt different. She noticed Jack loitering outside, a flicker of menace in his smirk as their eyes met. It sent a jolt through her, reminding her that not everyone was ready for change. Suddenly, her phone buzzed in her pocket. Claire pulled it out, scrolling anxiously, only to find a message that sent her heart racing. It was Mia. You won't believe what I found out. We need to meet ASAP. There's more to this than we thought. Claire's stomach dropped. What could Mia have uncovered? The stakes were rising, and she wasn't sure how deep the roots of the issue ran. In that moment, the path ahead was both exhilarating and terrifying. Claire took a deep breath, steeling herself. No matter what shadows lingered around them, she was ready to face them head-on. But as she stepped outside, determination coursing through her veins, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that this fight might not just change the diner, it could change everything she held dear. What would happen next? Would her pursuit of justice unravel secrets that could alter her life forever? Claire didn't waste a second. She quickly texted Mia, I'm on my way. Where? As she walked toward the park where they had often gathered for study sessions, her heart raced with a mix of excitement and fear. What had Mia uncovered? Each step felt heavier than the last, but she pressed on. The sun had dipped low, casting long shadows that mirrored her inner turmoil. Upon arriving, Claire spotted Mia seated on a bench, her expression tight with urgency. Thanks for coming, Mia said, her voice barely above a whisper. You need to see this. Claire took a seat beside her, catching a glimpse of her friend clutching her phone tightly, as if it contained the secrets of the universe. What is it? Mia drew a shaky breath and opened up a news app. Remember the town meeting last month? I did some digging on Mr. Thompson, and I found something linked to a lawsuit involving the diner. Claire's breath caught in her throat. A lawsuit? What do you mean? Mia scrolled through the articles, her eyes wide. It's from a couple of years ago. He was accused of fraud, and it mentions all these shady business practices that went on in this area. And he settled out of court. But there's more. She paused, scanning Claire's face for comprehension. What else? Claire urged, her voice rising in anticipation. Look at this. Mia pointed to a name mentioned in the article. It's one of the investors. It directly ties back to the diner. They were involved with Thompson. Claire's heart pounded like a drum, each beat echoing in her ears. This wasn't just about the diner anymore. It was about corruption that seeped into their very community. Do you think these investors know about what he did? What if they're not just innocent bystanders? Mia nodded, her eyes glimmering with determination. Exactly. If we can uncover this and rally more people, we might be able to do something. We can't let fear and intimidation silence us. A gleam of hope flickered inside Claire. They could ignite a fire in this community, a thirst for justice that had long been dormant. But what if they miscalculated? The worry crept back in, heavy like lead. What if they retaliate? What if we put ourselves at risk? Claire's voice wavered, uncertainty creeping in. Mia placed her hand over Claire's, grounding her. We be risking our comfort, sure. But isn't it worth it if it means protecting others? If we can help even one more person like us? We can't let Thompson have power over us. Claire felt that fear shifting into something else, resolve. It was time to push the shadows back into the corners where they belonged. They rose from the bench, a plan already beginning to form. Sudden noises broke the moment, the distinct sound of footsteps approaching. Claire, with hair standing on end, turned to see Jack coming around the corner, flanked by a couple of his friends. His expression was unreadable, but Claire knew that mumbled laughter and sidelong glances meant trouble. "Hey ladies," Jack drawled, his voice laced with arrogance. "What are you two plotting over here?" Heat surged through Claire. She refused to be intimidated. "None of your business," she shot back, standing taller. Mia echoed her sentiment, ready to back Claire up. Jack's smirk widened. "Oh, it's definitely my business when you're messing with things you don't understand." His tone dripped with menace, but Claire wouldn't back down. "We're fighting for our community, Jack. If you don't get that, maybe you're the one who doesn't understand." There was a moment of silence, the tension thick enough to slice a knife through. As Jack openly glared, Claire recognized the danger, but also a flicker of determination sparking in her chest. What would they do next? Could they actually rally their community against the oppression that loomed? Would they stand firm together? Or would Jack South's increasing threats drive a wedge between them? As they faced him, Claire felt the weight of her choices ahead. Confrontation could lead to change. But at what cost? The real battle was just beginning. The air hung thick with tension as Jack loomed closer, the smirk on his face unwavering. Claire felt the adrenaline pounding in her veins, wanting more than anything to stand her ground. Yet, a flicker of doubt whispered in the back of her mind, was this truly worth it? Mia shifted beside her, clearly ready for whatever was about to unfold, giving Claire a silent source of strength. Jack's friends snickered behind him, the sound sharp as a knife. Claire realized that this was bigger than just her and Jack. It was about the very fabric of their community, the respect they fought to weave back into their lives. "Look," Jack sneered, taking a step closer. "You really think the diner has anything to do with what's going on around here? You're just kids, making a mess of things you don't even understand." "No, Jack," Claire replied, firming her stance. "We're not just kids. We're standing up for what's right. Someone has to." Jack rolled his eyes, but something in his demeanor shifted. Was he surprised? Anger washed over his features as he took another aggressive step forward. "You think you're brave? You think you can take him down? You'll regret it." It struck Claire then that Jack's bravado was rooted in fear. He didn't want anyone challenging the status quo, especially not two determined girls. The realization sparked a fire within her. She wouldn't back down now. Regret? Claire leaned in, eyes blazing with conviction. "We'll only regret if we do nothing." Mia nodded along, and the strength they shared melted the uncertainty clawing at Claire. It was a small moment, but it allowed them to see the world wasn't just this, that they could change it. Jack's bravado faltered for the briefest moment, but then it hardened again. "You wouldn't dare go against Thompson. You don't know what you're getting into." "Try us," Mia challenged, her voice unwavering. Jack's friends snickered again, but this time the laughter felt hollow. Perhaps even Jack himself could sense the shift. In that moment, Claire noticed a flicker of concern creep into his confident facade. Did he know something that she didn't? Jack turned, scoffing as he walked away with his group. "You'll regret it. Just remember that." As he faded into the distance, The tension between Claire and Mia lifted a bit. They exchanged a glance, their eyes full of unspoken questions. "Did you see that?" Mia breathed out, disbelief mingling with exhilaration. He looked genuinely worried. "Maybe we really can do this," Claire mused, her heart racing not just from fear but from the thrill of possibility. "What's next?" "I think we need to dig deeper," Mia replied, pulling her phone back out. "We should investigate those investors further. If they're involved, we can use that against Thompson." "But how? We're just two girls. We need more than that." Claire felt the weight of their mission settling heavily on her shoulders again. Mia smiled determinedly. "We reach out. We talk to others, share what we've found. Show them we're not backing down." Claire stared at Mia, her heart swelling with renewed hope. "You think they'll listen?" "They have to," Mia replied. "If we can show them the truth, they'll want to stand with us. But we have to be careful." As they walked away from the park, adrenaline subsiding but anticipation building, Claire's mind raced. She imagined the faces of their friends, their neighbors, all those who might join them. Were they ready to face the storm together, despite the looming threats? A sudden chill ran down her spine as a harrowing thought emerged. What if Jack wasn't just bravado? What if he was right about the consequences they would face? "Do you think we're really prepared for this?" Claire finally asked, the gravity of their plan hitting her. For a moment, Mia didn't answer. She took a deep breath, her face set in determination. "I think it's more than we ever expected. But we have to try. We can't let fear win." A surge of energy coursed through Claire. She hadn't wanted to be a hero, but maybe just being brave was enough. Would that very courage ignite a movement in their town or put them in the crosshairs of something much darker? With hearts intertwined in determination, the two friends embarked on their mission, ready to uncover the truth. But as they started their journey, the wind whispered of threats lurking beneath the surface. What would they uncover next? And would it rally their friends to join them or scatter them in fear? The next few days felt like a whirlwind. The air was electric, charged with possibilities, but the threat of confrontation loomed ever closer. Claire and Mia dove into their research, their lives revolving around the commotion in the town. They started small, meeting in the back of the diner. The clanking of dishes and the sizzle of the grill became their backdrop. It felt familiar, comforting even, despite the tension swelling in Claire's stomach. "Okay," Claire said, flipping through a folder of notes Mia had compiled. "We need to find out who those investors actually are." Mia nodded, her phone buzzing with messages. "I've been asking around. Some people are wary, but I found a couple of folks who used to work for Thompson. They might have some insight." That small crumb of information swelled into something larger: names, connections, hints of corruption. The more they gathered, the clearer the picture became. Claire felt her heart race with every new tidbit. But alongside that excitement, a twinge of anxiety crept in. What if it was all too much? A chance encounter with Mrs. Hargrove shook Claire's thoughts. The elderly woman, a longtime diner patron, shambled into the restaurant, her face etched with worry. "Claire, dear, have you heard what's happening?" "What do you mean?" Claire asked, the weight of Mrs. Hargrove's concern flooding her with anxiety. "That Jack boy and his friends, they've been going around, spreading lies about anyone who stands against the new development. They're looking for someone to blame if things go wrong." The intensity in Mrs. Hargrove's eyes sent a shiver down Claire's spine. "You're not safe, dear. They'll do anything to hold onto their power." Claire exchanged a glance with Mia, who had been listening intently. The notion that their actions could draw harm wasn't new, but hearing it from someone they respected felt like an undeniable warning. "Yes, Mrs. Hargrove," Claire replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "But if we don't fight for what's right, who will?" The old lady's lips quirked into a sorrowful smile. "Oh dear, you remind me of my youth. We fought hard back then too. Just be careful." With heavy hearts, they resumed their research, but the air was thick with dread. As night fell, they started organizing community meetings, crafting posters, hoping to ignite a fire beneath the sleepy town. But with each step forward, Claire felt a tightening in her chest. a creeping fear that they'd be overpowered not just by Jack and his crew, but by the elements of their own community that wouldn't understand. What if no one showed up? What if they were alone? On one of those fateful evenings, just as Claire was finishing a flyer, a sharp knock echoed through the diner. She flinched, glancing at Mia, who raised an eyebrow. The door swung open, and Jack strolled in, an intimidating shadow amid the warm glow of the diner lights. "Hey girls," he sneered, his voice dripping with mockery. "Thought I'd drop by and see what all the fuss was about." Claire's heart raced. "What do you want, Jack?" "Just a friendly warning before you dig too deep." His smile was all teeth. "You have no idea what you're getting into. I'd hate for you to get hurt." Mia stepped in front of Claire, her posture tense. "We're not afraid of you or your threats, Jack." "Oh really?" He leaned in closer, voice low. "Think about it. You mess with Thompson's plans, and you mess with some powerful people. It might be too much for two little girls to handle." Claire's throat tightened. Doubt clashed with determination again, but she held her ground. "We're stronger together than you think." Jack's expression darkened. "You'll regret this. Promise." And just like that, he turned on his heel, a dark cloud again hanging over Claire. What had just happened? Had their resolve strengthened, or had they just painted a target on their backs? They watched him leave, leaving behind a suffocating silence. "What do we do now?" Claire whispered, heart pounding. "Now, we fight. We rally our friends and stand up to him. No more backing down." But deep down, Claire felt the fear, gnawing at her. Was she truly ready for what might come next? As the lingering shadows swallowed the diner, their resolve hardened. But the question remained, what terrible consequence would arise from their bravery? The next morning, Claire woke up with a sense of urgency that pushed her out of bed. She stood at the window, taking in the sun dappled over the sleepy streets of the town, a shimmering promise of a new day. But as she brewed her coffee, unease rippled through her. Jack's warning echoed in her mind like a bad tune replaying over and over. What did it mean to be stronger together? Did that promise hold true in the face of the dangers they were contemplating? Mia arrived soon after, her face set with determination as she joined Claire at the kitchen table strewn with flyers and notes. "Ready?" she asked, a small but mighty fire burning in her eyes. Claire nodded, though her stomach knotted with doubt. They had planned a meeting that evening, inviting anyone willing to stand with them. As the sun sank lower, casting orange and pink hues across the sky, the weight of the day settled heavily on Claire's shoulders. She placed one flyer after another, a visual manifesto of hope against the looming threat of Jack and Thompson. The diner had never felt fuller. Chairs scraped against the floor, and the din of conversations filled the air, mixing nervous laughter with determination. Claire stood at the front, clutching the fold of her stack of notes, closely watching the faces around her. Some were familiar, the elderly couples, the school teachers, even a few kids she knew from her waitressing days. But there were faces she didn't recognize, strangers drawn by the fear that was threading through them all like a dark vine. Mia spoke first, her voice steady and strong, rallying their peers. "We're here because our town matters," she said, glancing at Claire, who felt a swell of gratitude. "We can't let a few powerful people dictate our futures. We have the right to protect our homes." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. But Claire could sense the tension underneath unsure faces, whispers of fear. Then came a moment that struck Claire like a bolt of lightning. An older man with silver hair stood up, his voice wavering yet fierce. "We've lived here too long to let someone come in and take what we cherish. My family built this town. We can't let it die." A loud clap broke out, followed by voices rising. Claire's heart raced, a wave of hope washing over her. But just as doubt began to recede, the door swung open with a crash. Claire felt the air shift, the familiar shadow of Jack seeped in, bringing with him a tangible chill that settled through the room. "Thought you could rally the villagers like some kind of town hero?" he taunted, casually leaning against the doorframe. Gasps filled the room. Claire tightened her grip on the flyers. "What do you want, Jack?" she said, managing to keep her voice even despite the shivers that went down her spine. "You're digging a grave for yourself, Claire," he replied, eyes narrowed. "We'll see how strong you really are when the time comes." Fear swiftly encroached on her resolve. "It's not just me," she shot back, her voice stronger than she felt. "You threaten this town, you threaten all of us." He stepped forward, looking at the gathering. "Good luck with that," he smirked, before sauntering back out into the fading light. The silence that followed hung heavy, every heart in the room straining at the end of a thread, waiting to snap. But within that fear, something else began to spark. Courage stirred. "We can't let his threats intimidate us," Mia exclaimed, cutting through the anxiety. "This is our home. It's worth fighting for." A thunderous clap of hands erupted, voices rising in agreement. With every sound, Claire felt a surge of empowerment. They were not just a small group. They were a community united, and deep down, that flicker of hope ignited a belief there was power in numbers. But as Claire scanned the room, the question persisted: what would Jack's next move be? Would their unity stand strong against his looming menace? Or was this only the beginning of something darker? As the meeting wrapped up, Claire felt a mix of exhilaration and dread. They had taken a stand. But at what cost? The following morning, Claire woke up with a renewed sense of purpose, though the shadows of last night's confrontation still loomed large. The coffee brewed quietly in the background, but she barely noticed. Instead, her mind replayed Mia's words, echoing through her thoughts. "This is our home. It's worth fighting for." Once she arrived at the diner, the air was electric, charged with unspoken fears and hopes lingering from the meeting. Claire served the usual morning crowds, although today, there was a palpable difference in how people greeted her. The smiles she received felt tentative yet more meaningful. It was as if everyone had joined in a secret pact, unfamiliar but powerful. During a rare lull, Mia slid onto a stool, her expression serious. "I've been thinking," she started, her voice slightly trembling as if weighing the words. "If we're going to stand up to Jack, we need a plan. We can't rely on good intentions alone." Claire nodded, her heart racing. "What do you have in mind?" Mia leaned in, her eyes brightening with conviction. "We'll gather more support. Think about it: neighbors, businesses, the town council. The more voices we have, the louder we become." Excitement sparked in Claire, a hope she couldn't ignore. "And we can set up a meeting with the council, right?" She felt a shiver of determination run through her. "If we organize a petition or a protest." "Exactly." Mia's eyes lit up. "They can't ignore us if we show them we're serious. We'll be a force they can't silence." Fueled by their shared resolve, Claire spent the day making calls, speaking to whoever would listen. The more she explained, the more people rallied behind her message. By late afternoon, she felt a surge of excitement building within her, like a train leaving the station full speed ahead. But amidst all the rallying cries and hopeful chatter, a knot tightened in her stomach as she glanced out the window to see Jack leaning against his truck across the street. His smile was chilling, a taunt that hung in the air like heavy fog. It reminded Claire that not everyone would support their fight. Some might push back harder than ever. That evening, the diner filled with familiar faces once again, as more townsfolk arrived to express their support. Claire stood at the front, her heart pounding, eyes scanning the crowd of newfound allies. But just as she was ready to speak, her breath hitched when she saw Mrs. Becker from the town council sitting at a table in the back. "Thank you all for coming," Claire began, her voice trembling with nerves. "We've come together to protect our town from the looming threat posed by Jack and Thompson. We won't be silenced, we're fighting for our homes." Waves of nods and murmurs of agreement rolled through the crowd. A few even shouted encouragement, their voices mixing in a beautiful harmony of unity. Then, before the adrenaline could settle, someone shouted from the back, "What are you prepared to do?" The voice belonged to a familiar face, one Claire had seen almost every day at the diner. It startled her, yet it struck a chord of reality she needed. "I'm here to fight, and I need each of you with me," she said, igniting her courage. "We can't turn back now." Just as Claire finished her sentence, The door swung open again, this time even more forcefully. Fear washed over the crowd as Jack appeared once more, his face twisted with rage. He stormed in, cutting across the room with purpose. "What do you think you're doing?" he bellowed, his voice like thunder. The room froze, all eyes turned toward him, but none wanted to look away, and just as Claire gathered the courage to answer, she knew this was just the beginning. How far would Jack go to silence them? Would their unity be strong enough to withstand whatever darkness he planned next? A thick silence enveloped the diner as Jack's furious gaze swept across the room. Claire felt her heart thud louder in her chest, the weight of every pair of eyes pressing on her, urging her to respond. She could almost hear the collective heartbeat of her community, each thump echoing with confidence and fear. "What do you think you're doing?" Jack repeated, taking a menacing step forward. "You're stirring up trouble that doesn't need to be stirred." Claire straightened her back, refusing to let his anger crush her spirit. "We're standing up for our town, Jack. We're tired of being pushed around." Her voice was stronger than she anticipated, though it trembled slightly. Mia slid off her stool and stood beside Claire, a gesture of solidarity that felt like a lifeline. "We're not afraid of you, Jack. You've terrorized this community for too long. Those days are over." A murmur ran through the diner, voices rising to support Claire and Mia. Some customers stood, fists clenched, determined to fight back. Jack's mouth twisted in a mocking smile, but Claire knew his facade was cracking. "This is a waste of time," he sneered. "You think a bunch of ragtag townsfolk can change anything? You'll be crushed just like everyone else who dared to challenge me." Claire took a deep breath. "Maybe, but we've got something you don't, each other." She gestured to the people filling the diner, their faces etched with resolve. "We're not backing down this time." As if on cue, Mrs. Becker rose from her seat, eyes glowing with fire. "We all deserve a safe place to live. It's time the council hears from us, Jack. Even if it means going against you." Jack's expression darkened, and in that moment, Claire could see the menace lurking beneath his bravado. This was not just a battle for property. It was a fight for their dignity, their right to a community free from fear. "Fine," he spat, "but know this: I don't take kindly to threats. You'll regret ever crossing me." With one last seething glare, he turned and stormed out into the night. The diner erupted in cheers, voices climbing on top of each other in excitement. Claire's heart swelled, relief washing over her like a gentle wave. They had stood their ground. For once, they had faced the monster together. But beneath the joy, Claire felt uncertainty. Jack's threat lingered in the air, a warning that couldn't be dismissed. What would he do next? Would he fight back harder now that he had been challenged? Mia grabbed Claire's arm, shaking her out of her thoughts. "We did it. We really did it." Claire smiled, but it didn't fully chase away the clouds hovering in her heart. "It's just the beginning, Mia. We need to keep moving forward. We need to bring this to the council and make sure they can't ignore us." The fire in Mia's eyes shone brighter as she nodded. "Let us set a date for the meeting. If we're organized, we can't be overlooked." As they began filling out plans, Claire felt a shift. She was no longer just a waitress. She was a leader, and her own fears were beginning to shift, too. The possibilities were endless, but they required the strength of the entire community. That night, her dreams were laced with uncertainty and hope, the two woven together in a quilt of defiance. But tomorrow would demand more. Would the strength of their voices echo loud enough to reach the council? Would they inspire other towns to rise against adversity? As Claire tossed and turned under the weight of tomorrow's unknowns, one thing rang true. This fight had awakened something deep within her. She had a purpose now, a reason to push forward into whatever came next. And maybe, just maybe, their unity would light the way through the darkness that still threatened to sink its claws into their lives. Claire lay wide awake, the anxious anticipation buzzing like static in the air. How would they prepare for the council meeting? And would Jack accept defeat easily? Or was he already plotting a comeback? The day of the council meeting arrived under a heavy sky, gray clouds looming like the weight of uncertain futures. Claire stood before the mirror, adjusting her blouse with trembling hands. She could feel the gravity of the moment settling deep in her chest. It wasn't just a talk with the council. It was a chance to change everything at the diner. The atmosphere was electric as townsfolk gathered to support her. Friends she had grown up with, elders who had shaped the town's story, all showed up, their warm smiles and determined expressions imbuing her with hope. Mia joined her, radiating strength. Their eyes shared an understanding beyond words. As they made their way to the town hall, a flutter of anxiety twisted inside Claire, but it was quickly chased away by the sight of the growing crowd behind them. They were united in purpose, ready to fight against the shadows of intimidation that had ruled them for far too long. Inside the town hall, the tension was palpable. People filled the wooden benches, all eyes on the council seated in their formal chairs. Claire stepped forward, heart racing, and started speaking, her voice quivering but building in power. "We are not just here to push a business agenda," she began, the room falling silent. "We're here to demand respect for our community and our right to a safe environment." Applause erupted from the audience, grateful murmurs bouncing off the walls. The council members shifted, glancing at one another, their expressions a mix of skepticism and surprised admiration. But Claire had to keep pushing. She spoke of her experiences, of how fear had infiltrated the lives of so many in Maplewood. She spoke of necessity and need to stand together against the oppressive shadows cast by Jack and Mr. Thompson. Mia held up a petition filled with signatures, voices gathered in support, a physical symbol of their fight. "We have the power to protect our town," Claire shouted, the room igniting with shared energy. "The time for silence is over. Our unity is our strength." Then someone surprised her. Mrs. Becker, an esteemed council member, stood up. "I've been quiet for too long," she said, her voice strong and resolute. "I've seen the way things have changed for the worse in this town, and I'm ready to make a stand with you all." Cheers erupted again, a swell of courage breathing life into every person present. But then, like a chill sweeping through a summer breeze, Jack entered the room, flanked by his friends, a wild smirk plastered across his face. "Nice show," he taunted, eyes dancing with arrogance. The tension felt electric, and Claire's heart sank, but then surged again with undeniable strength. This was not about him. It was about them. "Jack, you don't intimidate us anymore," Claire shouted, her voice breaking through the noise. She wasn't going to let him hijack this moment. "We are standing together and you can't silence that." The council members shifted uncomfortably, unsure of how to handle Jack's disruptive presence. But Claire could feel the crowd's support, an energy pulsating through them, propelling her forward. "We want a community free from fear, free to thrive without intimidation. We deserve better," Jack scoffed. Yet there was a flicker of concern in his eyes as the murmurs of agreement grew louder. Claire locked onto that shadow of doubt, thriving on it. They were making an impact. "We are here to demand accountability. We will not let one man dictate our town's future." The room erupted in applause, voices rising high above their fears, shaking the very foundation of that moment. Clara's heart swelled every chant. Every voice joined the chorus of their unity, shifting the atmosphere from one of dread into a realm of palpable determination. But Jack wasn't done yet. He stepped forward. "You think you can win this, Claire? Thompson's power runs deep, and he'll crush you if you keep making noise." His words were like a cold wind, seeking to extinguish the flame of courage around her. Claire straightened, dragging strength from within. "Then let him try, because here today we are, claiming our right to a community where we can feel safe, and we will not back down no matter the cost." Mrs. Becker nodded, her approval igniting the room. "Jack, you are free to speak your mind, but your threats and arrogance define nothing here but your own insecurity. This community will move forward, united against the corruption that has held us in fear." With that, the council began to deliberate, Jack's defiance crumbling in the face of overwhelming unity. Claire could feel the tide turning, like a storm giving way to sunlight, and as her words hung in the air, filled with resolution, she felt the weight lifting from her shoulders. In that moment, she understood. Every voice mattered. Every heart in that room mattered. They were not just a group of individuals standing against threats. They were a family standing together, ready to reclaim their narrative. It was more than just about the diner. It was about dignity, about every soul in Maplewood, reclaiming their power. Days turned into weeks as they rallied together, confronting Jack and Thompson, unearthing truths and planning strategies. But it was the smiles on their faces, the warmth of community lifting the shadows, that sustained Claire's hopes. Months later, standing in front of a newly opened community center, Claire looked out at the faces of those she had fought alongside. They held their heads up high, unafraid. They had built something beautiful together, something that would stand tall against any storm. And as she turned to perfect her brother's wild curls at her side, Alex, beaming with pride, Claire finally embraced the certainty within her heart. She could be a hero in her own right, one who led with love, kindness, and relentless determination. With a full heart and radiant smile, Claire had transformed not just her life but the life of her community. And together, they stood ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that, side by side, they could overcome anything. Now, it's your turn to take a stand. Subscribe immediately to the channel right now to not miss the next exclusive stories of empowerment and change. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help spread the message of courage. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this inspiring ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation, because true friends don't wait to support. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share.